The door to Jakob Stern's trading post stood open in the pre-dawn darkness, swinging on leather hinges that creaked like gallows rope. That wasn't what stopped him cold. It was the message, written across the weathered wood in what looked like dried blood, but was actually crushed pokeweed berries mixed with iron rust, were 4 words that would change everything. She knows your secret, and below it a woman's handprint, small, deliberate. The fingers spread wide like a brand. Jakob's rifle was already in his hands before his mind caught up. He'd lived alone on this stretch of Wyoming frontier for 8 years, ever since the thing he'd done, the thing no one knew about, the thing that woke him at 3 a.m. most nights with his wife's name on his lips and her blood still wet in his memory. But someone knew, and that someone had been here, in his home. He stepped through the doorway, heart hammering. The interior was untouched. His furs still stacked, his ledger still closed, his coffee tin exactly where he'd left it. But on the table sat something that didn't belong, a woman's shoe, worn leather, split at the seam, and inside it a folded piece of paper. Jakob's hands trembled as he unfolded it. The handwriting was educated, precise. I didn't come to expose you. I came because I'm being hunted by the same men who killed your wife. If you want to know the truth about that night 8 years ago, meet me at Crow's Ridge before sunset. Come alone. And Jakob, bring the rifle you were too slow to use when they came for her. No signature. Just another small bloody handprint at the bottom. What would you do? A stranger claims to know your darkest secret and offers you the truth you've been running from for 8 years. Do you go, or do you run one more time? Tell me in the comments, because what Jakob decides next will either set him free or bury him alongside the ghosts he never stopped seeing. Jakob rode to Crow's Ridge as the sun painted the canyon walls the color of old wounds. The place was a natural amphitheater of red stone, perfect for ambushes, which was exactly why he approached with his rifle loaded and his nerves stripped raw. She was waiting on a flat boulder, silhouetted against the dying light. Not what he expected. She couldn't have been more than 25, with dark hair braided tight against her skull, and eyes that had seen too much too soon. Her dress was torn at the hem, travel-stained, and under her shawl he could see the handle of a knife. But it was her hands that caught his attention, wrapped in strips of cloth stained with the same rust-red color from his door. "You're Jakob Stern," she said. Not a question. He stayed mounted, rifle across his saddle. "And you're trespassing." "I'm Miriam Cole." She stood slowly, hands visible. "Daughter of Samuel Cole, deputy marshal. Murdered 8 years ago in a raid you were told was Lakota." Jakob's blood went cold. "I don't know what your wife was named Rebecca. She was 23. She died in your arms on September 14th, 1867, when 6 men burned your first homestead. You told the territorial marshal it was a native raid because that's what the tracks showed. But you always wondered why they took nothing, why they left you alive. Why Rebecca was the only one they—" "Stop!" His voice cracked like a whip. Miriam stepped closer. "They didn't kill her because you had land they wanted. They killed her because my father was getting too close to something, and your wife saw them meeting with a territorial judge. She was collateral damage, Jakob. Just like my father was 3 weeks later when they ambushed his patrol and made it look like he died fighting horse thieves." Jakob dismounted slowly, legs unsteady. "Why come to me?" "Because I found my father's journal, hidden in a lockbox buried under our old cabin. He'd been investigating a land theft ring, federal officials, judges, wealthy cattlemen. They were forging deeds, murdering homesteaders who wouldn't sell, then claiming the land was abandoned. Your wife witnessed a meeting between Judge Alistair Crenshaw and a man named Silas Decker. She probably didn't even know what she'd seen, and they killed her for it. They killed everyone who got close." Miriam's voice went quiet. "Including the 5 witnesses my father was protecting. All dead within 2 months. I'm the last one who knows the truth. And they're hunting me now." Jakob stared at her. "The blood on my door is a pokeweed and rust. I needed you to see me. Needed you angry enough to come." She pulled back her shawl, revealing bruises around her throat. "They found me in Cheyenne 3 days ago. I killed one of them with his own knife and ran. But there are more. They know I have the journal, and they'll burn down every homestead between here and Denver to find it. Why not go to the law? Because the law is theirs." She produced a small leather-bound book from inside her dress. My father wrote down every name, every meeting, every forged deed. Federal marshals, circuit judges, even a senator. If this gets out, it'll tear apart the territorial government. Jakob looked at the journal like it was a rattlesnake. So you came to a man with nothing left to lose. I came to the man whose wife deserved justice. Miriam's eyes blazed. They took Rebecca from you because she was in the wrong place. They took my father because he was in the right one. And if we don't stop them, they'll keep taking, keep killing, until no one's left who remembers there was ever something worth fighting for. The sun was almost gone. Shadows crawled up the canyon walls like accusations. Jakob was about to respond when he heard it, the distant drum of hooves. Many horses. Moving fast, Miriam's face went white. They tracked me. They rode hard into the failing light. Miriam behind Jakob on his horse, the thunder of pursuit growing closer. The terrain favored the hunters. Open grassland with nowhere to hide except the distant tree line still 2 miles away. How many? Jakob shouted over the wind. 8, maybe more. Miriam's arms were iron around his waist. They won't take me alive. They can't risk what I know. Jakob's mind raced. 8 men, open ground. A woman with a knife and a man with 1 rifle and 30 years of guilt. But he knew this land. Every creek bed, every hollow, every place the grass grew tall enough to hide bodies. Hold tight, he growled, yanking the reins left toward a dry ravine that cut like a scar through the prairie. They plunged down the embankment, the horse scrambling for purchase, and emerged in a wash barely wide enough for the animal. Above them, the riders thundered past, voices sharp with confusion. They'll circle back, Miriam whispered. I know. Jakob dismounted and pulled her down. Can you shoot? She shook her head. I can fight, but I'm better with this. She drew the knife, a wicked curve of steel with a handle wrapped in leather cord. Jakob handed her the rifle anyway. If I go down, you run east. There's a mission 40 miles out. Tell them Father Matthias sent you. He owes me. I'm not leaving you. You're carrying the only proof that matters. Jakob gripped her shoulder. If you die, Rebecca's death meant nothing. My cowardice meant nothing. You understand? Miriam's jaw clenched. I understand you've been running for 8 years. Maybe it's time you stop. Before he could answer, a voice echoed down the ravine. Miriam Cole! The voice was silk over gravel, educated, calm, deadly. Man who'd killed with words before he ever touched a blade. We know you're down there. And we know you have something that belongs to very important people. Jakob recognized that voice. Judge Alistair Crenshaw. Come up, Crenshaw continued. We'll make this quick. Painless, you have my word as an officer of the territorial court. Miriam's hands shook. Jakob took the rifle back. Your word? Jakob shouted. Like the word you gave Rebecca Stern before you shot her. Silence, then, the widower. I wondered if she'd found you. A pause. Jakob, isn't it? You've been very quiet these past years. Smart. We assumed you'd stay that way. You assumed wrong. Then you're as dead as she is. The ravine exploded with gunfire. Bullets sparked off stone, screamed past Jakob's head. He shoved Miriam deeper into the wash and fired blind, buying seconds. Run! He roared, but she didn't run. She grabbed a fistful of loose rock and hurled it toward the nearest rider's horse. The animal reared, throwing its rider into the ravine with a sickening crunch. Miriam was on him before Jakob could blink. Knife flashing. The man's scream cut short. She rose, blood on her hands, eyes wild. I told you, I can fight. 8 men hunting, 2 fighters trapped, and somewhere in the darkness Judge Crenshaw was smiling. If you're gripped by this story, subscribe now, because what happens next will test everything Jakob thought he knew about justice, redemption, and whether a man can ever truly outrun the ghosts he's made. They moved through the ravine like hunted animals, every sound magnified, the scrape of boot on stone, the rasp of breath, the distant calls of men coordinating their search. Jakob's shoulder throbbed where a bullet had grazed him. Miriam's hands were still shaking from the kill, but her eyes stayed sharp. How many more can you take? Jakob whispered. As many as it takes, her voice was hollow. I've been running for 3 months. I'm tired of being prey. They emerged from the wash into a stand of cottonwoods, the last cover before open grassland stretched to the horizon. No escape that way, no help coming. Jakob pressed his back against a tree trunk, checking his ammunition. 4 rounds left. Miriam showed him the journal, its pages worn from constant handling. My father's last entry was about you. Jakob froze. What? September 12th, 1867, 2 days before Rebecca died. She opened to a dog-eared page and read by moonlight. Visited the Stern homestead. Jakob's wife Rebecca has sharp eyes, sharper than his. She mentioned seeing Judge Crenshaw meeting with Silas Decker near Boulder Creek. Both men armed, both nervous. She thought it strange. I think it's evidence. Note, warn Jakob to move his family. If Crenshaw knows she saw, they're in danger. Jacob's throat closed. He tried to warn me. He never got the chance. They ambushed his patrol the next morning. By the time word reached your homestead, Rebecca was already dead. And I blamed the Lakota. Spent 8 years believing a lie. You believed what they wanted you to believe. Miriam folded the journal. Crenshaw built his whole empire on lies like that. Blame the natives. Blame drifters. Anyone but the men in power. A branch snapped nearby. Jakob raised the rifle. 3 figures moved through the trees, not toward them but flanking, herding them into a kill zone. They're boxing us in, Miriam breathed. Then we go through. Jakob's voice was ice. You ready to stop running? She smiled, grim, fierce. I was born ready. They burst from the trees together, Jakob firing twice, dropping the nearest rider. Miriam dove low, knife singing as she hamstrung a horse, sending rider and animal sprawling. But there were too many. A rope snaked out, caught Jakob's ankle, yanked him off his feet. His rifle skittered away. Hands grabbed Miriam, slammed her against a tree hard enough to crack ribs. Judge Crenshaw stepped into the moonlight, impeccably dressed even in the wilderness, his silver hair gleaming like a halo. In his hand a pistol, ornate, engraved, the weapon of a man who killed from a distance. Brave, he said, almost admiringly, but foolish. Jakob struggled against the ropes. Miriam spat blood and glared. Crenshaw gestured to one of his men. The journal. They tore Miriam's dress searching, found the leather-bound book, handed it over. Crenshaw flipped through it, nodded. Your father was meticulous. I'll give him that. He looked at Miriam. But words on paper mean nothing without someone alive to testify. You're going to kill us anyway, Miriam said flatly. Oh, undoubtedly. But I wanted you to understand first. Crenshaw tucked the journal inside his coat. Your father and Rebecca Stern, they weren't heroes. They were obstacles. And in the business of building civilization, obstacles must be removed. It's nothing personal. It was personal to me, Jakob growled. Crenshaw smiled. Yes, and that's why you've been so easy to control. Grief makes men predictable. He raised the pistol, aimed at Miriam's head. Any last words? Miriam met his eyes. I hope hell has a special place for judges. Crenshaw's finger tightened on the trigger, and the night exploded with gunfire, but not from his gun. Crenshaw staggered, clutching his shoulder. His men scattered as muzzle flashes lit the darkness like lightning. Riders poured from the tree line. A dozen men, faces hard as iron, badges glinting. Leading them was a broad-shouldered man with a marshal's star and eyes that had seen too much death. Federal warrant. He bellowed. Drop your weapons. Crenshaw's men hesitated. Some ran. Others dropped their guns and raised their hands. The marshal dismounted, walked straight to Crenshaw, and ripped the journal from his coat. Judge Alistair Crenshaw, you're under arrest for conspiracy, murder, and about a dozen other charges that'll see you hang. Crenshaw's face twisted. You have no authority. I have a direct commission from the territorial governor. Turns out he's been getting complaints about missing homesteaders for 2 years now. And when a certain Father Matthias sent word about a woman carrying evidence, the marshal smiled. Well, here we are. Jakob's ropes were cut. Miriam collapsed into his arms, sobbing with relief. The marshal crouched beside them. Miriam Cole? She nodded, unable to speak. Your father was my friend, and I've been chasing this bastard for 18 months. He held up the journal. This finishes it. Jakob found his voice. How did you find us? We didn't. You found us. The marshal gestured to the ridge. Father Matthias sent riders to every territorial outpost when a woman matching Miriam's description showed up asking about Jakob Stern. We've been tracking Crenshaw's men for 3 days. Then why didn't you intervene sooner? Because we needed them to lead us to the judge himself. The marshal's gaze hardened. Crenshaw's been untouchable for years. Too many powerful friends. But caught in the act with witnesses and evidence. He shook his head. Even he can't wriggle out of this. Crenshaw was dragged away, still protesting. His men were cuffed and loaded onto horses like cargo. As dawn broke over the grassland, Miriam finally let herself breathe. "It's over," Jakob said. She looked at him, tears cutting tracks through the dirt on her face. "Rebecca's name will be cleared. My father's too. Because you refused to run. Because we refused to run." She gripped his hand. "What will you do now?" Jakob stared at the horizon, where the sun was painting the world gold and crimson. "I think I'll stop hiding." 3 months later, Jakob Stern stood in the cemetery outside Boulder Creek, placing wildflowers on a grave that finally had the right words carved into its stone. "Rebecca Stern, 1844–1867, murdered for knowing the truth. Her silence will no longer be theft beside it." A second grave, newly carved, Deputy Marshal Samuel Cole, 1835–1867. He died protecting the innocent. Justice delayed is not justice denied. Miriam stood beside him, no longer hunted, no longer hiding. She wore a new dress, simple, clean, the kind a woman wore when she had a future again. "The trial starts next week," she said quietly. "They're calling both of us to testify. I'll be there. Crenshaw's lawyer is already claiming persecution. Says we're fabricating evidence," Jakob smiled. "Let him talk. The journal speaks louder." They walked back toward the town, where a new trading post was being built. "Stern and Cole General Goods," the sign would read. A partnership between a man who'd stopped running and a woman who'd refused to die quietly. As they reached the main street, a young boy ran up, breathless. "Mr. Stern." "Miss Cole, another family just came through. Said they were run off their land by men claiming federal authority. They've got nowhere to go." Miriam and Jakob exchanged a glance. "Send them to the post," Jakob said. "We'll find them a place." The boy ran off. Miriam smiled. "You're collecting strays now? Someone once showed me that the people everyone else throws away, they're the ones worth saving. Your wife showed you that?" "No." Jakob looked at her. "You did." That night, as the frontier town settled into uneasy sleep, someone nailed a new message to the courthouse door. Not in blood this time, in bold black ink. "To those who profit from silence, we are watching, we remember, and we will not be silenced again." Below it, 2 handprints. One large, one small. Judge Crenshaw hanged 6 weeks later. His co-conspirators followed. And the land theft ring that had murdered dozens was finally broken. But more than that, something else happened. People started talking. Homesteaders who'd been silenced by fear found their voices. Families who'd lost loved ones to accidents and raids began demanding investigations. And at the center of it all, a trading post run by a widower and the daughter of a murdered marshal. 2 people who'd written their names not in blood, but in defiance. Because sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can do isn't carry a gun. It's carry the truth, and refuse to let anyone make you silent again. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear win, subscribe to this channel. Because the frontier wasn't just built by gunslingers and outlaws. It was built by people who refused to forget, who stood when everyone else ran, who wrote their names in history when the powerful tried to erase them. Thank you for listening. Now go write your own name, and make damn sure no one can erase it.